Hi, welcome to my video on solving an equation by factoring. Notice I have the word extra there. And extra means that it might be discussed in your course. It might be done by a teacher, it might be done by the textbooks, but I like to do it because it reinforces the idea of factoring that we learned in the earlier videos. Solve an equation by factoring. Well, first of all, let's solve the four of these as we did before. So we keep the x's on the left side. So we add, we get 5x h. So we divide by 5. X, 5 cancels. X equals h over 5. Or we could say that's a 1h divided by 5 because 1 times h is h. Or we could call it 1/5 h. B, we need the x's on the left side, so the 6x is okay. 4x moves over to become negative. And the b is already there, and the t moves over to become positive because we need x's on the left and the other terms on the right. Simplify, we get 2x equals b plus t, and we divide by 2. Notice we cannot add these because they're on like terms. Divide by 2, so x is equal to, we could leave it like that, b plus t over 2, or we could go b divided by 2 plus t divided by 2. We still can't simplify, 2 can't divide into those variables. C, and we're solving for x, so ax is okay because it's on the left. 7g, move the g over, make a minus, and that gives me ag equals 6g. And we divide, we're solving for x, so we divide each side by a. A's cancel, and I get 6g divided by a, and I can't simplify. D, we're solving for x, so we move the x's on the left side, so the x term is here, so 4bx, and we bring the plus 2bx there, because that's a negative, make it positive. And that's a 2by already there, and this negative by has to move to the right side, and they're like terms, bx, so that makes 4 plus 2 is 6, bx equals, they're like terms, so that's 2 plus 1 is 3 by, and I'm solving for x, so I have to divide by 6b on both sides. 6b cancels out to give me x, and the b's cancels out, and 3, and notice 3, and the 3 goes once, 3 and the 6 goes 2, so I have a 1y over 2, or I could have, that's a 1 understood to be there, I could have 1/2 y. Let's continue. Notice I'm just reviewing now. So when we did factoring, we said the first rule in factoring is remove the GCF, and key is if possible. In other words, if there's a GCF in your binomial or your trinomial, then you should remove it first because it makes the factoring easy. Let's review that. Factor each. So I see 2 and a 6. So the 2 is common as a factor. So 2x divided by 2 is x. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Notice I have two terms, binomial, so there should be 2 in here. Multiply back, 2x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 and 9, the GCF is 3. 3 is the greatest common factor. We take the smaller number 6. 6 is not a factor of 9, but we check the 2 is not a factor of 9 because it's not even, so 3 is. So we take the 3 out. So 6x divided by 3 is 2x. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Again, multiply back. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 3 is 9, and it's negative. The GCF on 5 and 30, smallest number is 5. 5 is a factor of 30, so the GCF is 5. We divide 5a by 5, we get an a, because a times 5, 5 times a is 5a, that's a 1. And 30 divided by 5 is 6. If you multiply back by multiplying to 5 by both of these, you'll get 5a plus 30. D, I see a 7 as the smallest number, so 7 is a factor of 14, so 7 is the GCF. Notice so far I have no variables as GCFs. They're coming up next. 14 divided by 7 is a 2, and I need an x. 7 times 2x is 14x. 7y divided by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, so I'm just left with the y. And we have no numbers as a GCF, but we have variables. Notice there's an x in both terms, so we take the x out. Ax divided by x is an a, because x times a is ax. Bx divided by x is a b, so the x's cancel. And over here, they're not like terms, so I see a 4 as a GCF, because 4 is in both. I see an x in both terms, so the GCF of these two terms is 4x. So 4gx divided by 4x, I need a g, because g times 4x will give me 4gx, plus 4x is there and there, so I need an h. So 4x divided into 4hx is an h. Multiply. 4x by g is 4gx. 4x by h is 4hx. Perfect. And what variable is common here? I see a b. There's no numbers because that's a 2 and that's a 1, so I take the b out. bt divided by b is t, and 2bw divided by b is 2w. Notice b times t is bt, b times 2w. So notice when you divide, the b's are canceling out because you don't need, the b is here, so you're dividing, the b's cancel in both of these. Now let's get on to what this is all about, factoring, solving by factoring. Well, again, when you look at, the reason I did these up here is to show you that when you're solving these for x, we have the x's on the left side and we have the numbers on the right, or terms, but we cannot add a and b. Ax and bx are different terms. They're not like terms. So how can I solve this for x if they're different terms and I can't add them? Well, the idea is that I have to factor. Because x is common, because x is in both of these terms, I'll factor out the x. So ax divided by x is an a. Bx divided by x is a b. Again, check. X times a, ax. X times b, bx. Now I have x outside in a bracket. So that means if I want to treat, that's a multiplication. That's like a 10x. So I divide by 10, but in this case, I divide by a plus b on both sides. So when I have an a plus b and divided by a plus b, they'll cancel out like a 10 over 10, or a 5 over 5, or a 6 over 6. And so the answer to this is x is left, because they cancel, and I get the answer 7 over a plus b. Here we go, try this one. Again, we're solving for h. The h's are on the left side, the other terms are on the right side, perfect. I can't add these because they're not like terms. Again, I'm solving for h. H is a common factor, so I'll take h out of these two terms. So gh divided by h is a g. Gh divided by h is a 4. Multiply back. H times g, gh. H times 4, 4h. D. And I have a multiplication, so I'll divide by g plus 4 on both sides. So h, they cancel. So h is equal to d over g plus 4. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next few pages. We cannot add, so we have to factor it out to have 1x. Here we go. Let's do some more problems. Some more samples that I would do. Solve for x. Again, I can't add, so I will factor out the x. X times g will give me gx, and x times p will give me px. Again, the x is divided into this term to give a g, and px. So if you think about it, gx divided by x, the x is canceled, and you get a g. Px divided by x is p. So you divide x into this term, and you get the g. Divide x into this term, you get a p over 7. And that's the product, so g plus p, divide g plus p by both sides. That cancels, so x is equal to 7 over g plus p. B, we're solving it for x. X is x term there and next term, so we have to go 6ax minus ax. Because we're solving it for x, the x's go on the left, and I will always move the other terms to the right. But what I'm solving for will go on the left side, and all the other terms will go on the right. So that's a y over there minus the 2y. So that's a positive becomes a negative, and that's a positive becomes a negative. Add up 6, they're like terms, ax. So 6, that's a 1. 6 minus 1 is 5ax. And 1y minus 2y is a negative y. And I'm solving for x, so I'll divide both sides by 5a. Because that's 5a times x, I divide and they cancel out. So x equals, that's an a, so I get a negative y divided by 5a. C, again, I'm solving for x, so x is on the left. So this x term moves over to become wx. And that's a 3t, already okay, is on the right. So 9t comes over to make a minus. So that's can't add those, so I have to factor out the x. So x divided into abx is ab. And x divided into wx is w, good. And those are two like terms, so 3 minus 9 is negative 6, good. And because I have it factored in x all by itself, I will divide by ab plus w. ab plus w. Cancels out, so x, that's a 1. So x equals, and I can't divide, so we just have to write down what I have there. That's negative 6t over b plus w. Perfect. Keep her going. Let's go. X is on the left. We're solving for x. Cx minus fx equals negative h. So x is on the left, numbers or terms on the right. And that's a plus becomes a minus, that's a plus becomes a minus. And we can't subtract those, but we can factor out the x. So you take x out of that, you get a c. You take x out of that, and you get an f. You divide. Notice the x's cancel. And that gives you negative h. And because we have x isolated, we divide by c plus f. C minus f. They cancel, so I get x equals negative h all over c minus f. And e, let's see, we're solving for x. So the x's, px, x is on the left, negative becomes a positive rx. So all the x's are on the left side, and we move the other m is over on the right side, and the y moves to the right side. So x's are on the left, every other term goes to the right. Notice this time I have 3 terms, so I have x in every term, so I'll factor the x out. So px divided by x is p, x divided by x is 1, x divided by, notice the 1, I have 1, 2, 3 terms here, so I have to have 3 in here. So xr, rx divided by x is r. Multiply back. X times p, perfect. X times 1, perfect. X times r, perfect. And we can't add those because they're on like terms. And now I have it isolated, so I'll divide by p plus 1 plus r. And it's the same pattern all the time. They cancel out to give me they cancel to give me x. And I have an m plus a y all over p plus 1 plus r. So practice means now it's your turn to work these out. So work these two out and play it back to see if you're right. Here I go. X is on the right. Wx plus Tx equals, the 8 moves over to become plus. I cannot add these because if I'm like terms, I'll factor the x out. That's a W plus T. And that's a multiplication, so I'll divide by W plus T on both sides. They cancel to give me 1, so that's x equals 8 over W plus T. Number 2, mx add on mx equals 4d. Notice the x's go on the left, other terms on the right, the negative becomes a positive. Notice now that these two are like terms, so I got a 1 plus a 1, so that's a 2mx equals. So notice this time I didn't have to factor, I just can add these up. Now I divide, I'm solving for x, so I have to divide by 2m on each side. The 2m's cancels out, and top and bottom, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, and d and m. So d is on top, m is on the bottom. Let's continue. And now we have a few more. Again, pause the video, work these out to see if you're going to get them right, and play it back and see how you do. Let's see, x is on the right, already done. Numbers on the left, already. X is on the left, numbers on the right. So 9 is on the right, perfect. And I can't add these because they're on like terms, so I have to factor out the x. Y plus 2. xy divided by x is y. And 2x divided by x is 2. Multiply back. X times y, xy. X times 2, 2x. Perfect. And I have to divide by y plus 2 on each side. The y plus 2's cancel out. That gives me a 1, to remind you. That's a 1x. And that's a 9 over y plus 2. 1x is the same as x. And the equal sign is here. X is on the, we're solving for x, so x is on the left. So that's the 2 dx minus. And I have a negative, x is, that was almost, that's a plus 8x. I was only looking for 1x, but I really got, there's an x here, I got to move it over, make it minus. There's an x here, I got to move it over, make it plus. Equals, and the L is the only number variable difference, so the L goes to the right side. So there's 3 x's here. All 2 of these have to come over. Now we can't add as an 8x, a dx. There's a dx here and here, so these two can add up. So that's a 7, subtract 2 is 5, dx plus 8x equals negative L. And what happens, you got to be careful. Again, just be careful grouping your terms. And you can't add these because they're on like terms, so I have to factor out the x. 5 dx divided by x is 5d. 8x divided by x is 8. This is not a hard division. You can just do it in your head. And check it back. X times 5d, perfect. X times 8, perfect. And we divide by 5d. 5d plus 8 on each side. 5d plus 8. When I divide, these two cancel out. I get an x. And that's a negative L all over 5d plus 8. Number 5, x is on the left. 5a plus, I seen the 5 there. Ax is the first term, and the x is coming over to become a plus. And there's an 8. I forgot the, be careful. I got to be careful. There's an x here and here and here. So these two stay, and this x comes over, and the 10 stays there. And you can't, that's an ax, that's a tx, and that's an x. You can't add those because they're on like terms, so we factor the x out. A plus t plus, and notice that's a 1. Notice that's a 1. So when you divide ax by x, you get an a. When you divide tx by x, you get a t. And that's a 1x divided by x, so that's a 1. Remember, 3 terms here, there's 3 in here. If you don't have 3 terms in here, how can you get 3 up there when you multiply back by x? So there's 3. So x divided by x is 1. And now I divide both sides by a plus t plus 1. A plus t plus 1. And they cancel out to give me an x. So that's 10 all over a plus t plus 1. So be careful. Take your time. Move the x's to the left and the numbers or all the other terms to the right. Number 6, we have a 4 outside our brackets, so that's 4x minus 4a. 4 times x, 4 times negative a. Negative a times x, negative ax. Negative a times 3 is a positive 3a. X is on the left, 4x plus ax. That's an a there. So that moves over to become a plus. And the 4a goes over to the right. Negative becomes a positive. I can't add those. I can add those because that's 3a plus 4a, that's 7a, that's okay. But I can't add those, so I have to factor the x out. 4x divided by x is 4. Ax divided by x is a. Again, x times 4, perfect. X times a, perfect. And I divide by 4 plus a on both sides. They cancel, they give me 1. So that's a 1x, and that's a 7a divided by 4 plus a. You can't cancel here. You can't cancel those a's because you got that addition there. You could cancel if you had this, but you got a plus here, so you can't cancel. But that's because of that plus, you cannot cancel those a's. But if you had 7a over 4a, yes, you could cancel, but you can't cancel it. So that's solving a linear equation by factoring, because you have two x's on the left side or three x's, you can't add them together if they're unlike terms. So you have to factor the x out and then divide by whatever is with the x. And if you like this video, click the like button. If you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell if you wish. And you want to write a comment on my video, go ahead and visit my math website, mathfullyexplained.com. And there you'll see 3 sections. Me is my degrees and teaching experience. I have a section, video section, tells about the strategies I'm going to use to help you learn your math. And this content gives you the topics and the number of videos on each topic. And the black font is what's online on my YouTube channel, which is Math Fully Explained. So that YouTube channel, the black font is what's online right now, and the red font is what is the topics that I'll be developing in the near future. And I'm developing them in a sequence, like grade junior highs, then the grade 9s and 10s and 11s and so on. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.